Hello, everybody, and welcome to the College Football Show. That's right, we're doing another College Football Show episode. Today, I will be saying who I think are the top 10 teams in the country, who I think should be in the top 10 to start this college football season. But before we dive any further into that topic, let's get to the trivia question of the day. The category is Football Oddities. Which coach won 2 Associated Press NFL Coach of the Year awards with 2 different franchises, but not when his club won the Super Bowl? Was it A, Bruce Arians, B, Bill Belichick, C, Chuck Knox, D, Dan Reeves, or E, Marv Levy? I'll repeat the question. The category is Football Oddities. Which coach won 2 Associated Press NFL Coach of the Year awards with 2 different franchises, but not when his club won the Super Bowl? Was it A, Bruce Arians, B, Bill Belichick, C, Chuck Knox, D, Dan Reeves, or E, Marv Levy? Put your answer in the comments. I'll answer that at the end of the episode. But today's football birthdays are Dallas Clark, Larry Foote, Steve Kiner, and Ryan Tucker. So happy birthday to the gentlemen. These are your football birthdays, and those are your football birthdays and your trivia question for Friday, June 12th, 2026. But yeah, now let's get into this. Who I think should be number 1. I have the Oregon Ducks at number 1 for this college football season because, Donnie Moore, he wasn't a Heisman finalist, but he was in the Heisman conversation, and now getting him back for another year, he'll be more experienced. He will have learned from his losses against Indiana, where he was horrible. He will have learned from that, and he's going to come back even better. Last year, he had 3,565 yards, 30 pass touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He had a 71.8% completion percentage. He was great, and now that he's more experienced, he's had an entire offseason to train, and now Oregon only lost to 2 teams last year. It was Indiana. Indiana's still going to be good this year with Curt Cignetti, but they're not going to be as good because Elijah Surratt is gone. Omar Cooper is gone. Indiana's top 2 wide receivers, and then, of course, Fernando Mendoza. I know for a fact Curt Cignetti will recruit well, in that he has, but Indiana is going to be a completely different team. So the team that stood in Oregon's way is going to be a lot different. And Oregon had the 5-star recruit, 2 years ago, but he couldn't play because he went on a mission, so now they're going to have him back. Evan Stewart, he is their top wide receiver. He had to miss the entire year because he wasn't healthy, so now you have him back. And then I know that this doesn't matter that much, but Dylan Raiola is their backup, so they have a good backup just in case something bad happens. I get it, that doesn't mean that you should be number 1 just because you have a good backup, but that is very helpful. Now, they did lose their 2 coordinators. Will Stein, their offensive coordinator, left for Kentucky, and then Tosh Tupo or something, or their defensive coordinator, he left for Hawaii, but they promoted two coaches in their system to be the new coordinators. So yeah, you're like, oh, they didn't get anyone big to replace them, but they have someone who's familiar with what Dan Lanning wants. They have 2 people who know the system, know the players well, which might be more important than just bringing in a new guy who's well known, but they might not fit in with what Dan Lanning wants. We know that these guys will because they've already worked with Dan Lanning, so that's super helpful. Now, they did lose some key pieces on defense, like Blake Purchase, Ashton Porter, and Sina Lalu, but that's but a lot of teams are going to be losing great caliber players. It stinks, but you're just going to have to bounce back from that. You would prefer not to lose key players, but that's just a part of life. And then they also gained great players like Kai Parrish, a safety, Iverson Aku, a wide receiver, and Marcus Dixon, a defensive end. So that's super helpful. Because you lose pieces and you gain pieces. But overall, I think this team is going to be more experienced. They're going to be ready to go. And they're in for a great season. My record prediction for the Oregon Ducks, I'm thinking maybe 10-2. But there is a lot of scary games. At Ohio State might be the game of the year. That could be number 1 versus number 2. You'll see if I have it preseason number 1 versus number 2 in the coming moments. And then USC's a scary game. USC, this time it's on the road. So that I get it. It's not super far travel, but going into the Coliseum is really scary. And then Illinois, I think they got to go on the road to Illinois. Illinois is not going to be as good without Luke Altmaier, but I think Brett Bielema is going to have them ready to potentially pull off an upset. And then Washington's a scary game. So they have some scary games, and we'll see how this Oregon Ducks team can perform this year. But yeah, now next up, number 2. At number 2 in the country, I have my favorite team, the world-famous Ohio State Buckeyes. Maybe they're not my favorite team, but they're definitely top 3. Vanderbilt might be my favorite, but I love Ohio State, and they're in for another great year. Last year was frustrating. Best team in the country the entire regular season. Then you lose Indiana into the Big Ten Championship. 5 years as an Ohio State fan, and I have yet to see them win a Big Ten Championship, and I only finally saw them beat Michigan. And then they get upset to Miami in the quarterfinals. But again, getting a bye in the college football playoff is cursed. Teams are 1-7 in the quarterfinals if they didn't play in round 1 because they have too much rest. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about Ohio State. Now Ohio State, they're going to be a really good team this year. Julian Sayin is still there. He's going to be more experienced. He was young last year. He struggled against Texas. That was his debut game. That probably scared him a bit. But absolutely, Ohio State should be better this year. Julian Sayin is more experienced. Jeremiah Smith, the best wide receiver in the country, he's still there. He will be better. He's more experienced. And we have to... Having Jeremiah Smith, who's absolutely electric, we need to win more than one national championship. Now, on more of a rough note, Ohio State lost offensive coordinator Brian Hartline. He's been there for a while, even when Chip Kelly was the offensive coordinator. He took the South Florida job. That absolutely stinks. So where are we going to go offensively? Well, we got Arthur Smith. You're like, who's Arthur Smith? He was the Steelers offensive coordinator for the last 2 years, and he was the Falcons head coach before that. But you're like, didn't the Falcons fire their coach? Yes, they did fire him, and you're like, don't the Steelers have a bad offense? Not the best offense, but that's at the NFL level. At the college level, he should be better and should perform better. But then they also lost Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, 2 fantastic defensive players, and they lost Carnell Tate. But Ohio State, they are a wide receiver university, always getting first-round pick wide receivers, always. They probably brought in somebody else great. They still have Jeremiah Smith, the best wide receiver in the country. And the thing is, if you're Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, those teams, you can lose a star-studded player, and then you just recruit super well. And you're all of a sudden back in the conversation. But Julian Sayin had 3,610 yards, 32 touchdowns, 8 picks, and he led the league with 77% completion percentage. So that's important. Now, what do I think Ohio State's record is going to be? Maybe 10-2, but they have a super tough schedule. They got to go to Texas, got to go to Iowa, to Indiana, I think to USC, host Oregon, host Michigan. That could be 7-6. Probably not, but it's scary. We don't know. But yeah, see who I have at number 3. At number 3, I have the Miami Hurricanes. Yes, it was a Cinderella run, but they went to the national championship game last season, and that was with Carson Beck. And no offense to Carson Beck, but he's not necessarily a superstar quarterback. He's more of like a game manager, a decent quarterback. And they got Darian Mensah, who was a superstar for Duke. He had 3,973 passing yards, 34 pass TDs, 6 interceptions, and a 66.8% completion percentage. He was absolutely fantastic for the Duke Blue Devils. And he guided them to, undeserving, but he did guide them to an ACC championship win. Although they lost 5 games, and maybe 6. I don't know if they lost their bowl game. And then, they still have Malachi Toney. He was a freshman last year. Going into his sophomore year, he's going to be better. Freshmen are great, but now that you have that college experience, he's going to be unstoppable. Mark Fletcher Jr., he was their great running back, was their best player in their win against Texas Tech, although that was a defensive game. He's back. So you got your running back, you have your Malachi Toney's back, and then you're like, but they lost their quarterback. But again, Darian Mensah is better. Carson Beck was not the best. Darian Mensah is a fantastic quarterback. Miami, they gained edge rusher Dallin Wilson. They gained Then Durfius Jacobs, a wide receiver, and they gained Cam Vaughn, a wide receiver. I mean, they have gained great players, and I mean, the team was literally one drive away from winning the national championship. But you're like, God, remember they were 6-2. It was looking like another collapse. Yeah, but then they bounced back. And yes, Mario Cristobal is a choker, but he has a better team this year. Malachi Tony's more experienced. And then Darian Mensah, he can win Heisman. Darian Mensah is absolutely fantastic. He is a absolutely fantastic quarterback. I wouldn't be shocked if he wins Heisman. I would not be shocked. And that was at Duke. Imagine what he can do at Miami, a better team with a better coach. Manny Diaz is great and all. He's actually a former Miami coach, but Mario Cristobal's a lot better. I mean, Darian Mensah is fantastic. I mean, look at these highlights. He is a fantastic, fantastic quarterback. And he's the sole reason Duke won the ACC championship game last year. And then still a Malachi Tony. Malachi Tony is an absolutely fantastic wide receiver. Get him into a sophomore year. He can win the Quinliloff. I did not say that right. But the award for best wide receiver. I mean, there is talk that, this is going to be great. Miami record prediction, I've got him at 11-1. Notre Dame, Clemson, and Virginia Tech are the games to look out for. They're at home against Virginia Tech. But they go to Clemson. We don't know how good Clemson's going to be, but Dabo might get that team back on track. And it's tough to go into Death Valley and win. And then at Notre Dame, that could be the game of the year in November. They could both be undefeated. That could be an absolutely dogfight. That's going to be a fantastic game. That's going to be fantastic. Fantastic game. Could be game of the year. But now, see who I have at number 4. At number 4, I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. All the talk at the beginning of the offseason was Notre Dame has a absolutely loaded roster. They should be the national championship favorites. I already made a video a while back about why I would hate it if this team won the national championship. But you gotta give this team credit. They're gonna be absolutely fantastic this year. See, CJ Carr was great last year, and that was as a freshman. I get it, I'm giving you a lot of talk. They'll be more experienced next year. But being a freshman quarterback, who knows if you're going to be that good? And he was still good. He had 2,741 yards, 24 pass TDs, 6 picks, and a 66.6% completion percentage. Now going into his sophomore year, he'll be even better. He will be even better. But you could be like, he didn't always have to pass. He could rely on Heisman finalist Jeremiah Love. Absolutely. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. Absolutely. Is that tough? Because he used to have a fantastic running back, the best running back in the country. And according to Heisman voting, the third best player in the country. I get that, but going into a sophomore year, Notre Dame added Quincy Porter, a wide receiver from Ohio State, Mylan Graham, another wide receiver from Ohio State, and they added Keo Keeley, a defensive end from Alabama. So they have added great players. And Notre Dame's going to come out angry. They already were angry and didn't participate in the Pop Tarts Bowl. They can say that, oh, that's a great thing, we're going on strike. It was a crybaby move, but enough of that talk. They're going to come out angry. Because they missed out on the playoffs, they're going to be like, this is our year. We are ready to win a national championship game. We've gone to the national championship. That's not enough. And last year, they ended red hot. Notre Dame could have won the national championship if they made the college football playoff. It was just a bad start. I get it. They didn't really beat anyone that good on the 10-game win streak. Boise State, USC. No one huge. But they still, they still were red hot, dominating every team. So then going into this next year, yes, the entire offseason, that will definitely slow you down, of course. They're not going to come out red hot again necessarily, and very unlikely. But they're going to be angry. They're going to be like, you left us out of the playoffs? Okay. And then remember, their backup quarterback messed up grabbing the football on the PAT that would have tied it against Texas A&M or something. And so then if he doesn't do that, they might make it. I have Notre Dame going 12-0 because they're at home against Miami, so I can see them winning that. Going at BYU is scary, but I think that they can handle going into Provo. And then SMU, they're at home, so I think that they win that game. But now, see who I have at number 5. At number 5, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. They were absolutely fantastic last year, as always, under Kirby Smart. They are always fantastic under Kirby Smart. They were your ACC champions. They lost one game. It was at home against Alabama, but then they beat them in the SEC championship game. So the only team they lost to in the regular season, they beat later on. The 2 teams that they lost to, also Ole Miss in the playoffs, they also beat them. So, and they got the 3 seed. They were fantastic. But then Pete Golding, in just his second game as a head coach, beat Kirby Smart in a thrilling college football playoff quarterfinal game. That was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. But again, Gunnar Stockton's still there. He was absolutely fantastic. He had 2,894 yards, 24 pass TDs, 5 interceptions, and a 69.7 completion percentage. He was absolutely fantastic, and I expect Georgia to be a juggernaut this year, an absolute juggernaut, because as Georgia always is. I mean, this is going to be my 6th year into football. Yeah, I've been following college football for 5 years now. Georgia, the first 3 years, they went undefeated in the regular season. It was absolutely incredible. And Kirby Smart, he's just going to be ready to rock. They're going to be angry about Ole Miss. They play Ole Miss again, I think, maybe. And, if they do, Ole Miss better be worried because Georgia's going to come out hungry and angry. They did lose Zachariah Branch, a great wide receiver, offensive tackle Monroe Freeling, and linebacker C.J. Allen. So, Zachariah Branch, I'm pretty sure was really good for Georgia. So that's bad. But then they gain Isaiah Cannon, a wide receiver, to help fill that wide receiver gap. Amaris Williams, a defensive end, and Cale Barnes, a safety. So they also add key players. And running back Nate Frazier, he is back, along with tight end Lawson Luck. That is super crucial. And so they get their running back. They get a good tight end back. Georgia has good tight ends a lot with Brock Bowers, of course. So we're looking at super key stuff here in Georgia. They're always great. Zachariah Branch is a tough loss, but they gain new wide receivers. Nate Frazier's still there, so you still have that good running back. And Kirby Smart, he's like, wait, I haven't won a national championship in 3 seasons. He's starting I've got to change that. 3 years is way, way too long. It's probably what he's thinking. And he's right. He is absolutely right. I think they've won the SEC championship game 4 straight. No, I think not 4 straight years, but they've won it twice. Or 3 times in the last 5 years. But yeah. What do I think Georgia's record is going to be? I'm thinking 10-2. Or no, maybe 10. Yeah. But 11-1 or 10-2. Oklahoma and Alabama. Those are the games to look out for. That they could potentially lose. Now at number 6, I'm sure you already saw, I have none other than the defending 16-0 national champion Indiana Hoosiers. I don't have them at number 1 because, like I said when I was talking about number 1 Oregon and why I think they should be number 1, a really new roster. No more Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper at wide receiver, who were their top 2 wide receivers, and then they don't have number 1 overall pick, Heisman winner, going to the Raiders, Fernando Mendoza. They don't have him anymore. So there's a lot of uncertainty in Indiana. But there is one thing that you can absolutely be certain of, is that if Curt Cignetti is Indiana's head coach, they should be in the national championship conversation and be preseason ranked top 10 from now on. Because if you didn't know, Curt Cignetti took over a bad Indiana team his first year, but then he changed the roster a heck of a lot, and then they went to the playoffs. Then after their playoff year, he then built a really new roster with a lot of new players, and they won the national championship. So twice he's built a playoff team, and now I think he can do it again. I absolutely think he can do it again. And last year, Indiana only got preseason ranked like 20th, I think, in the AP poll or something. And a lot of people were not sure about Indiana because they were like, well, I mean, they had an easy schedule. The only two good teams that they played were at Notre Dame in the playoffs and at Ohio State. And they both got blown out, and they got blown out against both of them. And that is a reasonable take. So there was a lot of uncertainty. Curtis Rourke wasn't that good. And their best win was Michigan. Michigan finished 8-5 that year. They were not good. And I know that's coming from an Ohio State fan, but who we lost to that year. But, excuse me. But yeah, but you cannot sleep on Indiana again. I mean, there's their quarterback, Josh Hoover. They gained him. They also gained Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh. And they gained an offensive lineman from Wisconsin named Joe Brunner. But yeah, Josh Hoover last year, he is their new quarterback. 3,472 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions, along with a 65.9 completion percentage last season. So he was solid. And now with Curt Cignetti, who knows, he can win a Heisman. Because Fernando Mendoza was not that good at Cal. And then no one thought he was going to win Heisman. No one thought he was going to be the number 1 overall pick. And Indiana just came out of nowhere and shocked, absolutely shocked the college football world. I'm giving Indiana 11-1 or 10-2 record, 9-3 at worst, because hosting Ohio State, but they don't have that good home field advantage because it's small. Going to Michigan and playing USC, those are all scary games. But yeah, we shall see. And now let's see who I have at number 7. At number 7, I have the Texas Longhorns. I know what you guys might be thinking. Everybody got all excited about Texas last year. Had him number 1, had Arch Manning winning Heisman, and then Arch Manning pooped the bed, right? That's probably what you guys are kind of thinking. Yes, but also no, because Ohio State going on the road and playing the Matt Patricia, Ohio State Buckeyes defense, woo-wee, in your first game as a full starting quarterback, that's tough. Florida was a talented roster. Florida had a really talented team. I had the number 7 in my preseason rankings, and that was on the road. I mean, don't be too upset about them. Texas is Florida is a fantastic team. And then Georgia's also great. And towards the end of the year, they beat Vanderbilt, unfortunately, and they beat Texas A&M, their rival. So, I mean, Arch Manning ended great. Texas ended great. They won 10 games. And, I mean, going into a second full year starting, there's going to be a lot more to be excited about. At Texas, they ended red hot. Arch Manning ended great. He had 3,163 passing yards, 26 pass touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a 61.4% completion percentage. He also had 399 rushing yards and 10 rush touchdowns. He's a mobile quarterback, and a lot of college football quarterbacks aren't as good at running the football. They also added Cam Coleman, a stud wide receiver from Auburn, Raleek Brown, a running back from Arizona State, and Rasheem Bites, a linebacker from Pittsburgh, along with others. But they did lose Anthony Hill Jr., a good linebacker, Malik Mohammed, a cornerback, and Trey Moore, an edge. But Texas is going to be really good this year because they struggled at the beginning of the year. They were bad to start the year, 3-2, all the talk. And then they also got excluded from the playoffs. Rightfully, well-deserved, but still, they might come out angry because of that. Arch Manning ended great last year. I see a heck of a lot of potential for this team to be fantastic this year. Although the SEC is loaded, they're going to have to go through a lot of tough games. And you're like, well, they play Ohio State again. But this time it's at home. The difference between having to go into the shoe and then having that entire environment against you and having the environment in Austin on your side, that's an absolutely huge difference. I think that they can very, very, very well win that game. My record prediction for Texas is 10-2. I do think that they beat Ohio State and Oklahoma, but I think they lose at LSU and at Texas A&M. They are as good as both those teams, but going on the road, that makes it scary. And Texas A&M, they've lost back-to-back years against Texas. You know, they had to wait all this time with the drought of the rivalry, and then they lose their first 2 times. But yeah, now see who I have at number 8. Now at number 8, we have the Texas Longhorns' long-fought rival, the Oklahoma Sooners. They always have a great defense. Under Brent Venables can always build a fantastic defense. They were like the Iowa Hawkeyes of the SEC, and that's coming from an Iowa fan. And they had a horrible offense and a great defense. You could especially see that against Missouri last year. But remember, before John Mateer broke his hand, He was the Heisman favorite. So I'm just saying, he never came back fully healthy. He was never fully healthy. Now, entire offseason, he's still there. He can come back and have another Heisman caliber season. He can come back and have another absolutely Heisman caliber season. So I'm just saying, he can have another Heisman caliber season. And then, I don't care if they lost any defensive pieces. Brent Venables is always going to have his Oklahoma Sooners rolling. He absolutely always is going to have them rolling. They still have all SEC wide receiver Isaiah Sategna III. They have so he was their best wide receiver. They still have defensive anchor Kip Lewis. He was fantastic. And Peyton Pound was a solid safety for them. So 2 key defensive pieces returning, along with Brent Venables still being there. They still have their top wide receiver and their top quarterback. And their top quarterback was hurt last year, and they still made the college football playoff with him healthy. This team is going to be absolutely fantastic. They're going to be absolutely fantastic. They lost their edge, Mason Thomas, and they lost an offensive lineman, Ebek Nguyen or something, and then they lost Grayson Halton, a defensive line, and they lost others, but still 2 key defensive pieces back. Brent Venables always going to have a great defense. Top wide receiver and top quarterback there. John Mateer, 2025 stats, they don't look the best. 2,885 yards, 62.2% completion percentage, 14 pass TDs, 11 INTs, 433 rushing yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns. So, he wasn't the best, but remember, he had a broken hand. My record prediction for Oklahoma, I'd go 10-2 or 9-3. Georgia and Texas, I think, are almost for sure losses. Michigan could be a loss because it's on the road. But yeah, now see who I have at number 9. At number 9, I have a team that I am very excited about. No, it's not the Clemson Tigers. Do not worry. I would not have them up here. The LSU Tigers. Lane Kiffin is going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic at LSU. That offense is going to be rolling, but you're like, maybe it was Charlie Weiss Jr.'s offense. Well, don't worry. He's there too. Having both of them at LSU, he took a lot of the Ole Miss coaching staff. They added Sam Leavitt. The thing about Sam Leavitt, he wasn't the best last year. He was hurt. That's why he wasn't the best. And people say Cam Scatterbo was the only reason why that Arizona State team in 2024 went to the college football playoff. He was the main reason, but Sam Leavitt was still a great quarterback. And how was he going to do in Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr.'s offense? Because, they turned Trinidad Chambliss into a Heisman caliber quarterback. They turned him into a Heisman caliber quarterback when he just played for Ferris State. He wasn't even their starting quarterback. So, that is huge. Sam Leavitt, he's a fantastic quarterback. Sam Leavitt is absolutely fantastic. He only played 7 games last year. He had 1,628 yards, 60.7% completion percentage, 10 pass TDs, 3 INTs, 5 rush TDs, 306 rushing yards. But remember, he was hurt. And yeah, Lane Kiffin, that Ole Miss game is going to be incredible. That game is going to be incredible. All the controversy, let's hope all the Lane Kiffin talk isn't going to get into his head. But, LSU is going to be an absolutely fantastic team. Lane Kiffin is one of the best coaches in the country. He's one of the best coaches in the country, and he's going to be doing an absolutely fantastic job for LSU, and I'm excited to see what LSU can do under Lane Kiffin. I'm really excited. Arizona State was good last year, struggled a bit, but hey, they were still preseason ranked 11th last year without Scatterbo. That just proves to you how good Sam Leavitt is. And Kenny Dillingham is a great coach, but Lane Kiffin's better. He's a better offensive coach, all things considered. My record prediction for LSU is maybe 11-1, but I could very well see 12-0 for this LSU team. Texas is scary, but I think they're at home against Texas. Texas A&M, I think they're at home against. So they're at home against Texas and Texas A&M. They are even with both of those teams, so getting the home field advantage is super important. At Tennessee, but who knows how good Tennessee is going to be. And then Ole Miss, I think that they can go into that building no matter how rowdy it is and get a win. But yeah, now see who I have at number 10. At number 10, I have none other than the team that Lane Kiffin coached last year, the Ole Miss Rebels. This is Pete Golding's first year as head coach. I think a big reason why I have Ole Miss this high is because we kind of know Pete Golding can win at Ole Miss because he blew out Tulane, but you're like, that's just Tulane. And he beat Georgia, which I don't know Lane Kiffin. I don't know if Lane Kiffin ever did that at Ole Miss, but it's a new coaching staff, which he still had that coaching staff for at least the first 2 wins of those college football playoffs, for those 2 wins. And then I was going to have Ole Miss at 8, actually. But then I checked, and Pete Golding, he did say that it was Charlie Weis Jr.'s offense, not Lane Kiffin's. So that scares me. Oh, Trinidad Chambliss was still good, but Charlie Weis was still coaching in those games. So that makes me wonder. Okay, you have a defensive-minded coach. Who knows? Maybe it was Charlie Weis Jr.'s offense, and that was the main reason why Trinidad Chambliss was so good and now will struggle. But they still have running back Quan Lacey there. He is great. And Trinidad Chambliss, I still feel like Trinidad Chambliss can be a Heisman-caliber quarterback. I still feel that way. I still feel that he can be a Heisman-caliber quarterback. I still feel like he can be. And he's just absolutely fantastic. And without Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis, it's going to be kind of a struggle bus. But I'm still expecting great stuff from him because maybe they just gave him all the advice and trained him well enough that he can be an elite quarterback even without them. That's kind of what I'm hoping. But he was great last year. 3,937 yards, a 66.1% completion percentage, 22 pass TDs, 3 INTs, 527 rush yards, and 8 rush TDs. He was absolutely fantastic. He was a fantastic quarterback. So we'll see how he does this year without Charlie Weis Jr. and without Lane Kiffin. We know that he can be successful without Lane Kiffin because they still beat Georgia. So that's why I was going to have them at 8, but then it's like without Charlie Weis, maybe it was just his offense. That scares me. That scares me a lot to know, oh wait, maybe it's not going to be so easy because maybe Charlie Weis was the heart and soul. So that's kind of the concern, but they gained Carius Kern. I mean, they lost. But yeah, so they gained Carius Kern and Luke Farelli. And we all know the whole Luke Farelli situation with the tampering and all that. But yeah, what's my record prediction for Ole Miss? Maybe 10-2 at best, 8-4 maybe at worst. Because LSU, that's scary. Although they're at home, I think LSU is the better team. Oklahoma's scary, Georgia's scary, and Texas is scary. Those could all 4 be losses. So we don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. So that is what I think the top 10 should be for this season. All 10 of these teams are absolutely fantastic. I don't know my next 15 yet for sure in the order, so expect a video on that later. But before we wrap things up, let's get to the trivia question of the day. The category is Football Oddities. Which coach won 2 Associated Press NFL Coach of the Year awards with 2 different franchises, but not when his club won the Super Bowl? Is it A, Bruce Arians, B, Bill Belichick, C, Chuck Knox, D, Dan Reeves, or E, Marv Levy? The answer to the trivia question is A, Bruce Arians. Arians won twice with Indianapolis as an active coach, in 2012 and with Arizona in 2014. Strangely, he did not win while coaching Tampa Bay to a Super Bowl championship, probably because they were a wild card team. His 2012 award was earned when he filled in for the recuperating Chuck Pagano for more than half the season. So that's your answer to your trivia question. But yeah, that's who I think are the top 10 teams in college football this upcoming season. If you enjoyed this kind of content, really appreciate it. If you would like to subscribe, so close to 500. I mean, I honestly might be to 500. Last time I checked, I was at 497, and that was this morning. But yeah, but tell me in the comments, what is your top 10? Who do you think are the top 10 best teams in the country? But yeah, that's it for this episode of the College Football Show, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.